A 1-year-old girl vanished from her locked home in 1992. No signs of struggle, no open doors, just an empty crib and silence. For decades, the case went cold until a sealed nursery wall was cracked open to reveal something deeply personal. A custom-etched pacifier that hadn't been seen in 25 years. Someone had hidden it, and someone had returned for something else. Now the truth buried inside that house is finally surfacing, and with it, a chilling story that refuses to stay sealed. It was the kind of quiet night people forget by morning, but in the early hours of May 2nd, 1992, in a wooded stretch of Greenville County, South Carolina, something happened that would haunt the region for decades. At 2:14 a.m., a 911 call was placed from a single-story ranch house at 114 Hollow Birch Road, a dead-end street bordering the northern tree line of Paris Mountain State Park. The temperature had dropped to a crisp 54 degrees, with low humidity and no wind, an eerily still spring night. No storms, no alarms, the kind of night that offers no warning. Inside that house, Karen Whitmore, 26, had just startled awake. She would later tell police it felt like a switch flipped in the dark. She couldn't say what had roused her, no sound, no dream, but something was wrong. She crossed the hallway barefoot, her husband Greg still asleep, unaware their world had already cracked open. The nursery light was off. The room smelled faintly of baby powder and wood varnish. The crib sat in its usual corner beneath a handmade mobile, a gift from Karen's sister, painted wooden animals swinging silently. But the crib was empty. No baby, no blankets, no stuffed giraffe, only the faint depression where a small body had once been. Karen's scream was sharp enough to wake the neighbors. She dropped to her knees, reaching under the crib, then frantically checking the corners of the room, the changing table, the closet, even the toy chest. Nothing. She shouted for Greg. Together they tore through the house, opening every door, slamming every cabinet, checking behind the washer and dryer, inside the linen closet, beneath the kitchen table. All the doors were locked, every single window latched. Karen reached for the phone. Her voice on the emergency tape is brittle and wild. "My baby's gone. She's not here. The crib's empty. The house is locked. The windows are locked. Oh my God, I don't understand what's happening. Someone took her." Dispatcher: "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. What's your address?" 114 Hollow Birch. Please hurry, please." The first patrol car arrived at 2:26 a.m., less than 12 minutes after the call. Officers performed a rapid sweep of the house, confirming what Karen had reported. There were no signs of forced entry. The chain lock on the sliding back door was still latched from the inside. All first-floor windows were locked, undisturbed. The baby monitor showed no sign of malfunction, and Greg's account, that he'd last checked on Amelia around 9:40 p.m., lined up with the baby's sleep routine. The couple had lived in the home for just over 2 years. Amelia was born the previous spring. According to family, they were cautious parents, Karen especially. She kept the baby monitor on at all times, even in the shower. The nursery was baby-proof to excess. There were no pets, no open stairs, no unlocked cabinets. Amelia had just turned 1, not yet walking. She could barely crawl 10 feet without help. Detectives arrived shortly after 3 a.m. and began documenting the scene. Crime scene techs dusted the nursery windows. One anomaly was found: a partial smudge, roughly 3 inches wide, just above the latch of the west-facing window. Not high enough for an adult, not low enough for a baby. The print was incomplete, and no match was ever found. By 3:15 a.m., the Greenville County Sheriff's Department had issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, to surrounding units and highway patrol. Nearby homes were checked. Flashlights lit up the woods behind the Whitmore property. A K-9 unit was called in from neighboring Spartanburg. The dog picked up a scent at the back porch, but lost it near the garden wall, a patch of tilled earth and overgrowth that backed up to the tree line. By sunrise, a grid search had been established covering a half-mile radius. Officers moved in tight formation, shoulder to shoulder, combing through grass, thorns, drainage ditches, and underbrush. No blanket, no shoe, no child. Helicopter support was requested, but delayed by fuel availability. The nearest unit was based 67 miles away in Colombia. Inside the house, Karen sat wrapped in a wool throw, cradling Amelia's favorite stuffed giraffe. She hadn't spoken in an hour. Greg answered questions in clipped, mechanical phrases. "No, we don't leave the door open. No, we didn't hear anything unusual. No, there's no history of mental illness in the family." Detective Carl Hensley, then in his 9th year with the sheriff's department, walked the perimeter himself. "We were looking at a sealed crime scene with no exit, no entry, no signs of struggle. That's not a missing persons case. That's something else entirely." The only theory that seemed remotely plausible, that Amelia had somehow crawled out on her own, was ruled out by time, distance, and physical capability. The front porch had a 23-inch step-down, and the baby gate was still up at the hallway threshold. At 7:04 a.m., a neighbor reported their motion-activated floodlight had come on the night before at 1:57 a.m. They hadn't thought much of it. The woods behind the homes were full of deer, but their dog hadn't barked, and no unusual sounds were heard. Police logged the timestamp. By noon, local news stations had begun to arrive. Karen and Greg declined interviews. A missing child bulletin was drafted. Amelia's description: 1-year-old, blonde hair, blue eyes, last seen in yellow duck print pajamas, approximately 23 inches tall, 17.4 pounds, fair skin, small strawberry birthmark on right shoulder. By the end of the day, 42 personnel had participated in the search. No physical evidence had been recovered, not a fiber, not a print. The crib was empty, the monitor silent, the world unchanged, except for the gnawing truth inside that sealed house. A baby had vanished, and not a single door had opened. The first 48 hours in any disappearance are the most critical. In the case of Amelia Whitmore, those hours passed like smoke, visible, fleeting, impossible to hold on to. By 8:00 a.m. on May 2nd, 1992, just 6 hours after Amelia was reported missing, a full search operation had been launched. The Greenville County Emergency Services Office issued a formal alert. The FBI's Columbia Field Office was contacted before noon, though the case had not yet been federally escalated. A flyer was printed and distributed at local gas stations, pharmacies, and traffic intersections within a 10-mile radius. The home on Hollow Birch Road was now a restricted crime scene. Yellow tape wrapped the perimeter, and officers had logged over 120 photos of the interior by midday. The baby's crib, bedding, and monitor were all removed for forensic testing. A scent article, Amelia's worn pajama top, was sealed and handed to the arriving K-9 handler. The search grid was mapped in 4 quadrants. North, toward the state park's thickest brush. East, a stretch of old fencing and collapsed chicken coops. South, back toward residential streets. And west, into a muddy runoff basin known to flood in spring storms. Within hours, over 60 personnel were moving through that grid: local deputies, park rangers, and volunteers from the Greenville SAR, Search and Rescue. 2 cadaver dogs were deployed alongside bloodhounds, while patrol officers combed neighborhoods asking if anyone had seen a child, heard an engine, noticed a door ajar. Nothing. No stroller, no tire tracks, no drag marks, no pacifier. By 2 p.m., local dispatch began relaying search updates and incoming tips. The patrol logs from that period read like a rolling list of dead ends. 1403, negative result at drainage tunnel west of Grid 2. 1417, no sign at pump station access road. 1429, dog lost scent again at same west-facing tree line. Overhead, a civilian helicopter piloted by a volunteer from Skywatch Aviation Services performed a tight FLIR, forward-looking infrared pass of the area. Nothing unusual registered. No heat signatures that could match a child's size. Trees, brush, and silence. At 5:42 p.m., a full 911 call transcript was released to the task force. It was re-reviewed line by line. Here's the unredacted core of that recording. 911 transcript, May 2, 1992, 2:14 a.m. Caller, Karen Whitmore. Location, 114, Hollow Birch. ARD, Greenville County, SC duration, 0217. Dispatch, 911, what's your emergency? Caller, my baby, she's gone, my daughter. She's not in her crib. Dispatch. Okay, ma'am. Stay calm. What's your address? Caller. 114. Hollow Birch. Please send someone. The doors are locked. We didn't open them. I swear we didn't. Dispatch. When did you last see her? Caller. Last night, around 10. She was sleeping. Her giraffe was with her. Dispatch. And no one else is in the home? Caller. Just me and my husband. He's here. We just checked everywhere. Dispatch. Okay. Officers are en route now. Stay on the line with me. Caller. Sobbing. Unintelligible. She didn't even cry. Why didn't I hear her? Investigators played the tape 8 times that day. There was no indication of deception. Karen's panic wasn't rehearsed. Her voice fractured, surged, dropped into whispers. At one point, she asked if maybe she was still asleep. Could this be a dream? Could this be a dream? Meanwhile, neighbors from 3 surrounding streets had begun canvassing the area. Volunteers searched under porches, inside sheds, under decks. Some used pool skimmers to check nearby retention ponds. Others brought out ATVs to search the edge of the state park. By nightfall on day 1, the operation had entered a second phase. The FBI had officially joined the investigation. Special Agent Dana Loring, a specialist in infant abductions, arrived from Colombia. She interviewed Karen and Greg separately. Their stories aligned. Still, doubts were beginning to grow. Karen's family stood by her. Her sister, Melissa Hollins, told the press. She was overprotective to the point of obsession. Amelia had a routine, the doors were always locked, the monitor was always on. There's no way she just got out. But online forums and phone-in tip lines began filling with alternate theories. A break-in, a custody dispute, a sleepwalking parent. None held water. The only publicly acknowledged physical clue remained that faint smudge on the nursery window. On the morning of day 2, a local church hosted a gathering for volunteers. Over 120 people arrived. Greg stood on a folding chair and spoke briefly. She's not gone. She's just not here yet. Please don't stop looking. The woods were searched again, deeper this time. Another pass of the FLIR unit was scheduled. A roadblock was set up on Route 25, with vehicle checks performed between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. No hits, no sightings, no new evidence. The most chilling realization came from Agent Loring herself, who wrote in her case log that night, "The only scenario not yet disproven is the most impossible. She vanished into thin air." Comment, hope, if you'd search forever. By the morning of May 4th, 1992, the tone had changed. The first wave of adrenaline had drained from the search teams. By now, the house had been combed, the yard stripped down to gravel, and the tree line walked a dozen times. Amelia had been missing for 2 full days. No clothing had turned up, no remains, no ransom demand. No one had seen or heard anything, and yet the house still sat locked. It was now a viral mystery before the internet even had the word. Local television crews from WIFF4 and Fox Carolina ran back-to-back coverage. One segment showed a still shot of the empty crib, overlaid with reporter audio. The scene remained sealed. Authorities confirmed there were no fingerprints, no broken locks, and no footprints outside the nursery window. The disappearance of Amelia Whitmore has become the most confounding case in upstate history. Outside the crime scene tape, strangers began to gather. Mothers holding strollers, students with flashlights, people in work boots holding flyers printed at home. Someone posted a $1,000 reward, then $5,000. A local funeral home offered to print and laminate missing posters at no cost. Over 200 volunteers joined the effort by the end of day 3. The Greenville County Sheriff's Department set up a mobile command post in a rented U-Haul parked on the Whitmore's lawn. Inside, a whiteboard showing maps, search rotations, and a growing list of inconclusive leads. They had already followed more than 2 dozen. A few stood out. Lead number 1, the motorcyclist. At 3:42 p.m. on day 2, a man on a red Yamaha was spotted near the Whitmore property. He didn't slow, didn't stop, and wore no helmet. A neighbor described him as young, white, and nervous. Police canvassed gas stations along Y-276, but turned up nothing. No known local riders matched the bike. Lead number 2, the abandoned trailer. In the woods west of Hollow Birch, a half-collapsed hunting trailer was found. Inside were cigarette butts, canned beans, and a child's doll, faded, plastic, and left behind long ago. Nothing connected it to Amelia. The doll was dated to 1985. Lead number 3. The footprint. Near a creek bed, 0.6 miles from the Whitmore home, a single partial footprint was found in wet soil, 6 inches long with no shoe pattern. A baby's bare foot? Possibly. But it had degraded in the rain overnight. The print was cast in plaster, but lab analysis later ruled it non-conclusive. By day 4, the FLIR-equipped chopper returned for a new heat scan. This time, they expanded the perimeter to 2 miles. They flew low, 400 feet AGL, slow bank turns. Nothing but deer, raccoons, and thermal ghosts in the trees. At a press briefing, Detective Hensley addressed mounting pressure from the public. "We have no confirmed sightings, no surveillance video, no confirmed abduction vehicle. We are now considering every possibility, including ones we don't understand yet." By ones we don't understand, he meant the theory gaining the most traction online, that Amelia had somehow vanished into thin air without ever leaving the room. The house had now been searched 7 times, every inch documented. The crawl space? Clear. The attic? Empty but sealed. The HVAC ducts? Too small. The baby gate? Still latched. The front and rear locks? Both intact. Still, no signs of trauma, no ransom call, no useful prints. One reporter from WYFF posed the question directly, "Is there a chance this was supernatural?" Hensley didn't dignify it with an answer, but he didn't dismiss it either. That night, the Whitmore family released a joint statement through their pastor. "We ask that no one speculate or judge. Our daughter is not lost. She is missing, and she will be found. We believe that." They lit 28 candles along the sidewalk. Amelia had been gone exactly 48 hours. By day 5, the national news picked up the story. Good Morning America ran a 45-second segment. Viewers from as far as Arizona sent in dreams, theories, and prayers. One letter, handwritten in blocky cursive, read, "Check the walls. Babies don't walk through doors." It was unsigned. Still, investigators were out of leads. The perimeter had been searched to the point of exhaustion. By now, 95% of missing infant recoveries were already resolved, usually by family custody disputes or medical misadventure. But not this. This was a sealed house, a vanished baby, and no one who could answer the one question at the center of it all. If Amelia didn't walk out, who did? By the end of the first week, something subtle had shifted. The ground still felt the same, the air just as humid, but the urgency had cooled. Behind the search teams and posters, an unspoken truth had begun to harden in the background. Amelia was not going to be found quickly. No new leads had emerged by May 8, 1992. The house at 114 Hollow Birch Road was no longer an active crime scene. It had become something else entirely, a place of waiting. Detectives still came and went, but the cameras had pulled back. The volunteers were thinning. The case, though still active, had begun to drift. Detective Carl Hensley would later call this phase the False Hope Valley, a period when tips surge, but none land. And the tips did surge. One came from Asheville, 48 miles north. A woman claimed to have seen a baby in the back of a pickup with a flat tire and out-of-state plates. Investigators reviewed nearby traffic cams. The truck had Virginia tags. The baby belonged to the driver's sister. A different infant. Safe. Another tip pointed to a rest stop off I-85. A pacifier had been found near a vending machine. It was pink and partially chewed. But it wasn't Amelia's model. This one was mass-produced by Playtex, not the custom brand Karen had ordered. Even these small false alarms triggered emotion. Every time Karen heard a knock, she froze. Greg stopped sleeping altogether. A social worker was assigned to visit them weekly. The couple was cooperative, but unsteady. Greg had lost 12 pounds in 9 days, and yet, no arrests. No suspects. No one ruled out. But no one charged. The media began circling broader waters. On May 9th, WYFF4 News aired an interview with a man named Brent E., who claimed he had seen a woman in dark clothing near the Whitmore backyard on the night of the disappearance. His description was vague. He later changed the time twice. Police brought him in for questioning and released him an hour later. He had been intoxicated during the original sighting. No credibility. The segment still aired. The public, desperate for movement, latched on. Online bulletin boards, early forums like Usenet and local BBS feeds began speculating wildly. Was it a cult? A cover-up? A sleepwalking parent? Detectives, now under pressure from all angles, reviewed Amelia's birth records, hospital files, and pediatrician notes for any custody disputes or flagged visitors. Nothing unusual surfaced. They even looked into the nursery contractor, a man who had installed a new closet shelf just 2 months prior. He was vetted and cleared, worked for a bonded company. No history, no connection. And the nursery itself? Still silent, still undisturbed. Karen refused to go inside. Boxes began stacking in the living room. Evidence, photos, crib sheets, files. The pacifier Amelia had chewed on 3 days before she vanished. Still sealed in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, Karen's idea. To keep her DNA fresh, she'd said. As the 2-week mark passed, a quiet decision was made. The case would not be called cold, but it would slow. From 3 full-time investigators, the team dropped to 1, Hensley. At a press conference on May 14th, he stood alone at the podium and delivered a simple update. We are still looking, we are still hoping, but we now ask the public to remain patient. Behind the scenes, he'd started reviewing old, unrelated missing child files, anything with similar elements. Locked homes, no signs of struggle, vanished infants. There were only 2 within 15 years that came close. One was in Montana, one was in Vermont. Neither were solved. Amelia's file was now marked as open, no movement. The home was returned to the Whitmores. Greg went back to work in June. Karen didn't. The nursery door stayed closed. She would sit some evenings on the back step, staring at the overgrown yard. Not crying, just looking. On July 1st, the family held a vigil, small, quiet, mostly neighbors. They lit candles again, placed them in a circle on the porch steps. Someone read a poem about absence. Someone else whispered, "She's still here." But of course she wasn't. The trail had gone cold. Comment, "Still searching," if you'd keep the posters up forever. For 25 years, the Whitmore case sat in silence. By 2017, the files were digitized and boxed. Amelia's case number, GCSD 92-1975, was listed in a low-traffic database of unresolved infant disappearances. It had been handed off twice, then archived. No updates, no suspects, no new evidence, just an address, a date, and a single word. Vanished. Karen and Greg divorced in 2006. No other children. She moved out of state. He stayed local, remarried briefly, then separated again. Neither ever gave another on-camera interview. The house on Hollow Birch Road was sold in 2009 to a property trust, sat vacant, then resold at auction in 2016. The new owners, a couple from Charleston, planned to gut and modernize the interior. Open floor plan, new wiring, a skylight. The contractors they hired, Becker plus Sons Renovation, started demo on April 13, 2017, beginning with the nursery wall. At 10:47 a.m., Demolition crew chief Luis Renna pulled back the plaster and hit solid brick, which was strange. The original blueprint from 1971 showed no brickwork inside that wall. It was meant to be drywall only. A quick knock confirmed this wasn't decorative. It was sealed from the inside, a layer of stacked brick, 3 deep, behind the plasterboard. They started chipping. It took over an hour to remove 2 feet of it. At the 22-inch mark, something clattered free, a small plastic object that dropped into the dust. Luis picked it up. It was a baby pacifier, off-white, partially yellowed with age. The silicone nipple was cracked, dry. The handle had once been blue, now faded to gray. But what stopped him cold was the name etched into the side. Amelia. Not a sticker, not a mark. Etched. The site was halted, the item bagged. The foreman, aware of the property's history, placed a call to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. Within 2 hours, Detective Angela Meyer, now lead on cold cases, was standing in the half-demolished nursery with gloved hands, staring at the object. The serial batch code on the pacifier matched the 1992 model used in Amelia's baby photos. It wasn't mass market. It was a limited run by Lovelace and Byrne Baby Goods, a boutique brand that closed in 1995. According to their records, only 12 were ever manufactured with that handle engraving. Karen had custom-ordered them in February of '92. 10 of them were never found. One had been recovered during the initial investigation, in the freezer. And now, a second had appeared, sealed behind bricks that hadn't existed during construction. What followed was a temporary reactivation of case GCSD 92-1975. Evidence teams returned to Hollow Birch. The wall was fully dismantled, layer by layer, cataloged with 4K body cams and laser scanners. Nothing else was inside. No clothing, no prints, no blood. Just that pacifier. Forensic analysis confirmed it had not been placed recently. The polymer degradation, the dust deposits, even the brick mortar chemistry all aligned with an age of 26 years. Someone had placed it inside that wall between 1992 and 1995 and sealed it shut. That left 2 impossible questions. 1. Who had access to the home during that time? 2. And why would they hide an object belonging to a missing child? Detective Meyer ordered a full audit of previous residents, contractors, and service visits during that 3-year period. A plumber, a pest inspector, a short-term tenant in 1994, no one with criminal records, no one still local. The timeline was thin, too thin, but the facts were unavoidable. A sealed wall, a custom-etched pacifier, and a vanished child. It was the first physical clue in 25 years, Meyer said later, and it came from inside the house, inside the wall. The pacifier changed everything. For the first time in a quarter century, the Whitmore case was officially reopened. The cold file, once boxed and static, now had a living thread, something to follow, something undeniably real. Detective Angela Meyer built a small task group, 3 investigators, 1 forensic analyst, 1 architectural historian. Their goal was simple: figure out when the wall had been sealed and who had sealed it. The renovation blueprints from 2017 showed no interior brick. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes brick was used to fill space cheaply during older remodels. But when Meyer pulled the original construction documents from 1971, it confirmed the wall had been hollow when the house was built. There was no legitimate reason for bricks to be added later. Only 1 renovation had been logged between 1992 and 1995, a minor electrical permit filed in 1993. The work had been contracted to Hessler Electric, a small company that no longer existed. County archives showed the permit covered outlet replacement in 3 rooms, including the nursery. No inspection photos, no worker names, no invoice total, just 1 signature at the bottom: T. Madsen. Detective Meyer dug for a week. She found that Thomas Madsen, then 38, had worked briefly for Hessler Electric. He left in '94 and moved west. A background check showed no violent offenses, but in 1996 he'd been charged with trespassing inside a vacant duplex, attempting to access a sealed crawl space. Charges dropped. He died in 2008. No family, no interviews, no known connections to the Whitmores. Was it him? The bricks in the nursery were tested for mortar age. The lab returned an estimate, laid between late 1992 and mid-1994, give or take 6 months. That lined up almost exactly with the pacifier's last known appearance. The forensic team scanned the wall cavity where it had been found. Behind the brick, they uncovered a faint outline in the plaster, something that had once been there, pressed or leaned. A smudge, a curve, possibly the shape of a small container. But whatever it was had been removed before the wall was sealed. In other words, the pacifier might not have been the only thing hidden. Why would someone leave it behind? And what else had been placed in that wall, then taken out? Investigators reviewed Greg and Karen Whitmore's access logs. Neither had been in the house between 1993 and 1995. The property was unoccupied, held by a rental company. The listed tenant during that time was a traveling nurse named Elise Rowden. She had moved out in '95, returned to Ohio, and passed away in 2010. Dead ends, again. But the detail that stuck with Meyer most came from her own notes. There were no fingerprints on the pacifier, not one. It had been wiped clean, and carefully placed, almost too carefully. Someone wanted us to find it eventually, she said, but not until now. And they hadn't. Not for 25 years. With the pacifier confirmed authentic, Detective Meyer took a gamble. She requested a full cavity scan of the nursery wall, including floor and ceiling joins, using side-scan sonar Kongsberg EM-2040, typically reserved for marine salvage but adaptable for tight interior voids. The device was borrowed from a forensic engineering lab in Columbia. The scan showed anomalies, faint air pockets beneath the floorboards of the nursery, not visible from inside, not listed on any blueprint, possibly old ductwork, or something else. A structural bore was approved. On May 17, 2017, technicians drilled a 3-inch access hole at the base of the wall. A flexible ROV camera was inserted. Inside, they found a hidden crawl void, no more than 18 inches high, with a strange notched indentation along the concrete slab. Just enough to place something, maybe a box. But the space was empty. The camera feed was recorded. Here's a section of the ROV operator's log, written that day. Operator log, May 17, 2017. Time, 14:06 EST unit, Camflex XR, snakehead, 10 mm depth, 18.4 inches. Notes, clear entry, some webbing, one spider nest, indentation visible, looks man-made, no dust inside cavity, oddly clean, no object recovered. Feels like something was there, and removed. That line stuck with Meyer. Feels like something was there, and removed. This matched the earlier outline on the plaster behind the brick. Someone had stored something else behind that wall, then taken it before sealing it up. The pacifier may have been left behind intentionally. But why? And why wait 25 years? A new tip came in. A retired GCSD officer remembered that during the original 1992 search, the crawlspace blueprints for the house had been oddly incomplete. Nobody thought much of it then, but now it confirmed something. This space had been missed the first time. Whatever had been there was long gone, but someone had known it was there. Someone had come back, taken what they left, and walked away without a trace.